Hey, welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall, the podcast where a pastor and an atheist come together and discuss things, all kinds of things.
All kinds of things.
That's right. And we have a very special thing we want to share with you guys today. Again, you can find us at kerncast.com on Sunday nights at 5 o'clock. This is a special recording because we're actually going to be unavailable today. We're not actually live right now. This is a recording, but we'll be back live next week, and we're going to have some questions for you guys, and you guys can participate. Again, post questions, put things on there. We want to get back to you. You can email us at avalidanswer@gmail.com and join our conversation. That's really what we're going to talk about right now.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So we have a vision. We do have a vision and a kind of a vision statement that we have written out, and we'd like to share with you why we do this podcast, what it is that's on our heart. And Marshall wrote this up, and we worked together on this, and we really want to share this vision with you guys.
And I assure you that unlike, your mission statement at work, this isn't the boring kind.
No.
So
Marshall, lead us through this.
All right. 2 centuries ago, something strange happened. Long before TED Talks and podcasts, people attended talks by inspiring speakers. They called these gatherings salons, and they were quite popular in the 1700s.
These salons were attended by young aristocrats and the growing educated middle class. The speakers, they shared new ideas. They talked about like natural rights and equality, suffrage, the abolition of slavery. These ideas were far-fetched at that time.
The idea of a society where men and women were equal and all races lived in harmony, enjoying freedom, natural rights, and economic liberty was simply ridiculous. For most people, it was unimaginable.
Yet, beginning in the late 18th century, these ideas blossomed into reality thanks to violent revolutions in the Americas and France. And these crazy ideas swept across Europe, deposing monarchs, and eventually they spread around the world.
Yesterday's silly ideas shaped the world we know today. And those ideas began to spread with simple discussion. Today, some people are hoping to do the same thing. We are 2 of them. We are hopeful that the ideas we discuss will become the seeds of tomorrow's revolution and the foundation of future society. Wow. Our plan to accomplish this is very simple.
By hosting our own virtual salon. We hope to get people thinking about ideas, and perhaps we can even get them to share those ideas. That's what will bring about change. When people stop talking about the garbage that mass media is feeding them and start talking about ideas, the change will begin.
We need to examine ourselves, our personal lives, our public lives, the choices we make. We need to study our world. We assure you, it is not as we have been told it is. Mm-hmm. It is not as we think it is. Even some of what we believe is surely mistaken.
Wow.
We must seek to understand the world as it is. We need to understand ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, and why. And we need to decide how to change the world and start performing the works that will make that change happen. We are out to start a revolution.
Wow, that's right. Now, Marshall thinks it starts in our minds. I believe it starts in our hearts, but we agree that it spreads by sharing and it flourishes by our effort.
Foolish, naive young people once changed the world, and they started by simply talking about ideas. Now we invite all of you to join us as we work to change it again.
Wow, that is our vision. That is why we do what we do here on A Valid Answer. So, Marshall, tell me, what do you mean by a revolution?
Well, I mean that we really need to change our society. I don't think that anyone is happy with the way that we're governed. I don't think that anyone is happy with our economic situation. I don't think that anyone is happy with our environmental situation. And we really need to change the way that we operate as a society if we want to move forward into the future, a future that is sustainable and frankly pleasant, because the future that a lot of us are looking at is a future of poverty. It is a future of inequality. It is a filthy, polluted future. And it is a future into which we do not want to bring our children and our grandchildren. But right now, that seems to be the trajectory that we're on. So we need to change that.
Very interesting. I believe there also needs to be a revolution, but a revolution of the heart, even more so than a revolution of even the things that you're talking about. That yes, those things need to be changed, but I believe the change comes from the heart, that we have to aim for individuals to change themselves, that's where the change happens. But again, the discussion is where it starts. We're not going to change our minds, and we're not going to change our hearts unless we're getting into these discussions. I cannot change your mind across a keyboard.
Correct. You're not.
I cannot, and I absolutely cannot change your heart.
Right.
Real change happens when people come together and discuss, and they care for each other, and that human empathy finally comes. You call it human empathy.
Right.
I call it the Spirit of God. When as a Christian, as a believer, the Spirit of God comes over us, that the love of God comes through us to those who we're next to, who we're with, that God, we know that as Christians that God loves everyone. And our job as Christians is to share that love, not share condemnation, not share, you're evil and all this, but to share that love. And you cannot share that love unless you're coming together.
And I think that in the status quo, the powers that be, the people who are profiting the most by the problems that exist in today's world, I believe they are trying very hard. They are working overtime to divide us. They are dividing us on silly issues like President Trump and immigration and, the gun debate and abortion and so on, and healthcare. All of these issues, I would wager, Scott, that if you or I or any two of our viewers who are watching, even if they are ideologically opposed to each other, if we sat down at a pizza parlor over a nice large pizza and a pitcher of beer or soda, if you prefer.
Diet soda, please. Thanks.
And if we gave them 2 hours and a notepad, they would solve any of the major problems that we have. For example, if I said, hey, solve healthcare, after a couple hours, they would come out and on a single 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper.
I don't know. We've been at this for a while, and we really haven't, you and I haven't even come up with agreeable solutions. I don't know if one sit down. I mean, the greatest minds that we were talking about, even in this, it took them 11 years to create the Constitution.
It did. It took a while to work out the details, and that's where the devil is. The devil's in the details. But we have people in our government who can't even agree on the most basic facts. When you have people saying that sea level rise is attributed to rocks falling into the ocean, really? I mean, Scott, come on. Even you have to think that's ludicrous, right?
I haven't heard that one, so I don't want to even...
Yeah, that's the quote of the week from last week. So, when people don't agree on fundamental facts, when they don't agree on reality, we have a problem.
Yeah.
And yet these are literally the clowns who are running our government. They're making all the big decisions. These are very wealthy people. They live in gated communities. They have their own healthcare system.
Wait. What's wrong with gated communities?
Right? And
I don't live in one.
There's nothing inherently wrong with a gated community, but my problem is we are sending these people to go to bat for us. You and I, who are average, everyday, middle-class Americans, we're asking them to represent us, and then we're surprised when we elect them and they don't actually represent us. And why don't they represent us? Because they are not from our community. They
so
may
what's
live
your
in
solution?
the same city, but they're not us.
So what's your solution?
Well, we have to stop electing, rich people. We have to stop electing career politicians.
Well, how does
electing?
Who are you going to elect? Because it takes money to get on the ballot.
I understand that, but that's where you and I start the revolution. The revolution comes about when we say we're not going to vote for the establishment candidate, the lesser of the two evils. We're going to stop this lesser of two evils voting. That
what would you say
happens.
to someone who says you're throwing away your vote?
And I don't care. We're going to vote for the guy next door. We're going to vote for the person who comes from our community. We're going to vote for the teacher, the truck driver, the plumber, the person who has worked all their life in retail or at Walmart or something. We're going to
How is that going to happen?
These people.
How is that going to happen? How can we do that?
Because have to,
I agree that that's the solution. But this machine is constantly keeping us on this. There's two parties. That's it. There's all.
But we can break that machine.
How?
We can break the machine by taking this idea and letting it go viral. If this idea is shared, if it goes viral.
So you're saying how we do this?
Yes.
The way it gets done is by you.
That's right.
It's you.
Exactly.
You are going to make this happen. You are by sharing this podcast, by engaging in your own discussions. You are going to make this happen.
By sharing this revolutionary idea, we don't need guns and violence. What we simply need to do is use the power of the ballot to vote for the candidate that is not the lesser of the two evil, to vote for the outsider, to band together behind them, and to reject this lesser of two evil,
So you agree with
two-party
me?
system that has corrupted. Because remember, the right wing and the left wing
Yeah.
belong to the same bird.
So yeah, the government. So you agree with me that government is not the answer?
Well, I think the answer lies with us, the people. And I don't think that government itself is inherently bad when government represents the people. But when government represents the interests of a narrow group of society, a narrow group of people, then government can become corrupt and tyrannical and
As
evil.
it is right now.
And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the government is turning into an oligarchy, a plutocracy, where a very few very wealthy people are calling all of the shots. And once again, the decisions they make do not reflect our self-interest.
So we need your help. We need you to help spread the word, get the word out there, get these discussions out there, share this with everybody, share these ideas with everyone you know, and stop eating what's being force-fed to you by what's coming through your television. In fact, this is something
That's intended to divide us.
Yeah, well, this is something I'm still able to stay fairly up to date on stuff without being distracted by whatever the quote of the week was from whatever
Or
whoever
a royal wedding.
because 20 years
silly
ago when my
shows
wife and
or-
I decided to get married, we decided not to have a television. We have not paid for cable for 20 years of our lives. I don't get
Unplug.
news. I don't get this constant feed of all this negativity and all this stuff that is trying to control all of it. I don't subscribe to it. Literally, I don't subscribe to it. I don't buy it. I don't pay for it. I don't feel
Save the
that
money.
I don't feel that I'm uninformed. I feel that I'm more informed by not being misinformed, and we're saving money.
Well, it's propaganda.
Yep.
It's almost exclusively propaganda and then marketing. So if you like being force-fed propaganda and you enjoy consuming marketing that assumes you're an idiot and treats you like an idiot when you really think about it, then, unplug. The revolution isn't going to be televised anyway. The revolution happens in our minds, or according to Scott, in our hearts. We might be talking about the same thing, but the revolution starts with you, the individual, and it begins with ideas. A lot of people like to talk down about millennials. They like to talk down about the young generation that's coming up. But every single revolution in history has been led by these young people, 18, 19, 20-something years old.
That's
The
how
founding
that's
fathers.
how old the founders were.
Yes, the founding fathers that created America were in their 20s. Many of them were.
How many of them? 55 of the signers. Come on. How many of them were under 20?
Some
How
of the most
many of them were under 30 even?
Most of them. I
Most
would
of them
argue
were
most
under
of them.
30.
I would argue most of them.
You have the numbers for that?
I don't have the data.
You don't
but,
have the data.
But I will find the information.
Because it's possible. It's possible you
it's
could be
true.
right. Well,
Because-
we don't know because you don't have the data. But here's the thing: a lot of times we envision people of history as being older than they were.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, you look at Jesus and his 12 disciples. Every picture is of these old late 40s men with gray beards and stuff like that. And it's
Right.
like, no, disciples, they were because of where they were and because they were following a rabbi, because of the traditions of that time, the people that would be following a rabbi, they would be teenagers. They would be, most of them under 20. The only one that's even mentioned of being married is Peter. And Peter, he was probably, they got married at 17, 18. He's the only one who's mentioned to be married. He's the only one that the Bible says, that, they mention his mother-in-law. Now, just because they don't mention for anybody else, but he was the older brother of a younger brother, Andrew. But people just picture them as being old. And there's not I don't think you can think of a greater revolution in history than Jesus and his 12 disciples.
So there you go. So there's the precedent. Whether you want to look at the history or the biblical, or maybe we could call it history, I suppose.
Yeah.
We can assume it's history.
I just got an atheist to call it biblical history.
Well, for the sake of peace and goodwill. But the point is, it's young people who always take the lead, and it's the young people who are at the vanguard of revolution. That doesn't mean we
here's
don't
what
have
has
a
to
role
happen.
play.
I want to share you guys a scripture. It's either 1 Timothy or 2 Timothy. I should probably know better what it is. But it basically says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. The problem is people usually stop right there, but the scripture goes on. It says, however, in deed, in honesty, in the way you act, in the way show yourself to be an example. So young people, if you're doing stupid things, nobody's going to listen to you.
Yeah, if you're eating Tide Pods, right?
Yeah, if you're doing stupid things, nobody's going to if you're letting yourself be uneducated and just blabber out whatever it is the mainstream media is telling you to say, whatever MTV is telling you to say, whatever these big corporations and these powerful people who are manipulating you to say these things, as long as you're doing that, you're not showing yourself to be above reproach. You're not showing yourself to be somebody that can be trusted. Your age does not depend. It does not depend on your age whether or not you can be trusted, but it does depend on your actions if you can be trusted. And if you're doing stupid things, stop.
But the good news is I don't see most millennials eating Tide Pods and doing stupid things. In fact, I think that's only a very teeny tiny fraction of that population. But unfortunately, our media, which has a vested interest in maintaining the status quo,
So it's very much like the
puts
point,
them out as the example.
like the 0.00001% of gun
Yep.
owners representing, and so 99.9999% of guns don't kill anybody, but we have to pay for the 0.0001%.
Well, you might have an argument there, at least as far as the stats go.
Okay.
But anyway, we are here to start a revolution, and it begins with talking about ideas. You might think that we're crazy. You might think that these millennials are crazy or what have you. But this is how revolutions start. And Scott and I are here to invite you to our revolution.
That's
we
right.
think that we can literally change our society
And
from
you
within.
can make it happen.
And
You
we can
are.
do it
We're the catalyst.
peacefully.
We're the catalyst.
Yes.
But you're the gas behind it. I like like a blowtorch. You have the oxygen and acetylene, right? You got to get a right mixture of oxygen and acetylene, or are you oxygen? I'm acetylene. I don't know what it is, but you got to get behind. But there's that spark. We're trying to be that spark. You are actually the oxygen and acetylene. You guys are the gas that gets put behind it, and we're going to spark. And we need you to be the flame.
Right. And there are some practical ways that we can do this. First of all, again, share this podcast with your family, friends, and neighbors. Share it across all your social networks. Talk about these ideas. Switch off the reality TV, which, by the way, isn't. Switch off the ridiculous stuff, the strident news broadcasters who are just complaining about one scandal or another. Just turn it off. It's not going to enrich your life or help you in any way. Just turn it off. Instead of watching that, talk about ideas.
Yeah.
Sit down with your friends. Sit down with a pizza and a beer and say, well, how do we fix healthcare in America? It doesn't matter if you never agree. What matters is that you can have a civil discussion and disagree and still be friends at the end of it. And you might be surprised. You might come up with some really good common sense ideas, and perhaps your ideas will be good enough to go viral.
Maybe you're the one. Maybe you're the one who's supposed to step up and say, vote for me.
Who knows? Because that's the final step of the revolution. We can't keep electing these establishment candidates. No. We just can't do it. I'm sorry. They have a big smile. They speak very well. They're polished presenters. They're not off the cuff like we are.
You're certainly not talking about Trump, right?
Well, yeah. The cool thing about Trump is he's an outsider, but he is also an oligarch or a plutarch or whatever you call it, where he's very wealthy. And what I'm saying is we need to elect people who come from our own communities, people who we would recognize, in the grocery store where we shop.
Yeah.
Those kinds salt of the earth people. Now, I understand they're probably not going to know the intricacies of negotiation, and they're going to have a really hard time writing legislation. But do you honestly believe that the people we elect are spending all of their time laboring over
none
legislation?
of them are actually writing any of the legislation. They don't even know what it says. They don't read it. Somebody else is writing it for them.
The lobbyists are doing all the work. We pay.
So hold on.
People.
So is that a problem? Does that mean we're still going to keep that part of it?
No. The problem is we have to get rid of all of that too. But we're not going to clean it up by doing the same thing that we've always done. In fact, that's literally the definition of insanity. If you keep doing what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got.
Yep.
And at this point, that's garbage. So what we need to do is elect new people with a new mindset who are going to go on and say, I'm really going to represent my community. I'm going to represent the middle class. I'm going to represent the poor. We're not necessarily out to eat the rich, but we're going to represent average, everyday Americans, hardworking Americans. And you're not going to get that from the establishment.
Nope.
So you elect these people, and hopefully they have the presence of mind to say, we're going to change our approach to writing legislation. We're actually going to participate in it ourselves. We're going to have people there who advise us.
Yep.
but we're going to do the work ourselves. We're going to get our own hands dirty. We got to stop sending people with Esquire after their name, which, by the way, do you know what Esquire means?
I do not even know. I never even knew. It was only till recently that I realized it's behind their names because they're a lawyer or something. Or
Well, lawyers use it, but the term Esquire originally means a person who does no work with their hands.
Bill S. Preston, Esquire.
Right? But it means a person who's never done work with their hands. It was a term
Wow.
reserved for the English gentry. And that was literally a badge of honor for them, that they never had to do any kind of manual labor or work with their hands.
Wow.
And these are the people who we are sending to represent our interests when we do nothing but work with our hands.
No.
That's ridiculous.
Well, everybody,
There you go.
join the revolution. Be the revolution. We're not telling you to take up arms. We're not telling you to.
You don't have to.
No, we're not telling you to, start throwing things and making Molotov cocktails and blowing things up. No. This is the revolution of the heart, revolution of the mind. That's what we're talking about, and you need to do that. You can join us every week at A Valid Answer, kerncast.com, 5 o'clock on Sunday nights. We appreciate you tuning in with this recording, and we'll be back with you live next week. And until next time, this has been A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. Take care,
Thank you.
and God bless.